Hello and welcome to this week's Different League show, sponsored by Betfred. So the fans are back, and although it's not quite as many as we would like, it does feel we are on the road to normality. Delighted to say alongside Mark Langdon and myself, we have a Manchester City legend and a Rotherham legend, I have to say. It is Shaun Goater, MBE. Shaun,
Yes.
Good to see you.
Yes, very well. Glad to be here. I'm excited. Looking forward to today's show. Yes.
Is there a royal protocol here with an MBE? Do we have to bow to you at all or anything like that?
Well, no, we can just leave it as Shaun. You can say MB if you like. We're not on a football pitch, so no.
Brilliant.
We're all good.
Look, I mean, two big talking points. So we'll start with the negative. The booing at Millwall Saturday. You know, their fans say it wasn't racism, but a protest against the political arm of Black Lives Matter. And then, of course, what happened last night as well in the Champions League. The comment made by the fourth official in the game with PSG and Başakşehir. What are your thoughts on both of these as well? Two kind of different incidents, but very linked, of course, with racism.
Yeah, well, don't quite know the reason why, the fans were booing at Millwall in regards to, the players taking a knee. So my immediate thought is the education that needs to go into those fans and conversations with those fans on why they're booing. Because I guess if they understand or why they're taking the knee, then perhaps they may have a different viewpoint. So not quite sure why they were booing. And some players have taken a stand, whether it's taking a knee, as black players or people. It's just important that some action's being taken and they're seen that the fight is really about equality, and that's just it. So I think it's a little bit of education. So that'll be interesting to see who is able to have that conversation, and I think the club has to take a stance. And when I say take a stance, whether that's flyers around the ground, so when fans come and saying, we support our players and taking a stand or taking a knee, and we support the players in this. There's flyers around. If, as a fan, if you're not supportive of this, then perhaps you're not the fan that we want to be supporting the club. And I think those sort of hard lines from the club educates the fans, and also it lets fans know like where they stand. But again, if fans are allowed to come in and boo, and we don't quite know why, I'd be intrigued to know why it is they're booing. Is it the action, or are they educated about it and feel that they disagree with it? So
they're arguing it's not about racism. They're not booing that, not being racist in that aspect. It's more the political arm of Black Lives Matter and kind of what it means about that. You know, can you understand that in any way? Is there any way that authorities can make the message clearer? So actually, in the way that they did last night, to be fair, statements were made, actually made before Saturday as well, but certainly before last night's game, the players linked arms, Millwall fans applauded that. The message was cleared. Is there anything else that the authorities, you feel that they can do?
Well, I think Black Lives Matter has become huge because it's global, and I don't know if people are feeling the narrative is moving to a political stance because it's become so big. But from certainly black players and players that are supporting black players, it's about that equality. That's it in a nutshell. And I guess if the fans are booing about that and they have that as an understanding, then I think that can help towards their understanding.
What did you make of what happened last night as well in the Champions League, where in the end PSG and Başakşehir players went off after 40 minutes? They're going to continue the game this evening as well, but with the comment from the fourth official.
Yeah. First out, I'd like to say I think it's absolutely brilliant that both sets of fans, both sets of players have decided to walk up the field. Now, only going off of what I can hear Demba Ba say, sort of questioning the fourth official and how he's been, the fourth official is trying to say, yes, it's him, and with him saying, this black guy, as opposed to when he referred to the white player, he just said him, I suppose. And so I think there has to be an investigation because we're not there and we don't get the whole context of what's being said. But what I do like is that the players have taken a stance to say we're not accepting this, and I again, not there in hearing it all, but just going a little bit by Demba Ba's emotions, and we're trying not to go all the way that way without knowing the full context. I'm just looking at his emotions. It's like a player that goes down in the box, and nowadays you can get players that roll over and you think, well, he looks like he's been shot, and no one's touched him. But for me, his emotions seem really up there, as though he's clearly been said, he's been questioned that way, and so it really sort of got under his skin.
Well said, and it's difficult to comment without knowing, as you say, the full facts. And it's also not what someone says, it's how they say it as well. Again, we weren't there, so we don't know. But Mark, what's your opinion on this?
Well, I suppose it's difficult, really. I think for white people to sort of get too involved in that part of the conversation, because too often you kind of you get sort of white middle-aged men going, oh, but he's not being racist, but you don't know what that racism feels like in the first place. I like the fact that the players walked off. I don't see how things will improve unless the players walk off. And I've said this before about sort of more mundane sort of matters when fans protest inside a stadium. If you're still doing the action, if you're still giving the owners your money, I don't think they understand enough. And so the only way UEFA, FIFA and the authorities will kind of get the message that this is not on and it's not acceptable is if players walk off, and then you've not got that product. And, so I think it was a big step last night, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was the last that way either. I think that now there is kind of a precedent here that the players will just walk off.
And I hope something will be done as well, because UEFA in the past have done next to nothing and given silly fines as well. Zero tolerance and racism. We're all 100% behind that. Let's talk a bit of positivity, the fans being back as well. Jurgen Klopp said it made him emotional. It gave him goosebumps. What did they do for you, even though there weren't any fans in Manchester City?
Yeah, well, I've been able to do a little bit of media stuff at City games, and City haven't had supporters, so I've seen the part where obviously there's not been supporters, but now that the fans are back, in the small numbers, I think is absolutely brilliant. Players have, and you would know in our time, if you were going through a tough time as a player, you would absolutely have loved the last 6 months of not having fans, because if the fans start getting on your back.
My whole career.
Yeah, you can't trap a bag of cement. And it can be that way for some players. So the fact that fans are back, we all like to think of it from a positive point. But if a player is struggling with confidence, I'm trying to think. I think it was one team where fans came back and then they were booing the players. And I think the manager said, do we really want fans back? Because these players aren't relaxed. But I think it's a brilliant thing. Baby steps to getting back to normality. I'm excited about it, and we're just hoping the numbers can just be added on. Obviously, with it all being safe as well, but it's just exciting. It's exciting that fans are back, and you can get the cheers, we can get the boos, we can get the referee, come on, get.
And that's just
back.
You.
That's just
the
me.
referee.
Yes.
Not so much at City in the last few years. I mean, look, hopefully Tier 3 clubs can become Tier 2 clubs next week, and hopefully Tier 2 clubs won't become Tier 3 clubs. But how quickly do you feel, if everything's right from a safety point of view, we can get to 2, 4, 8, 10 plus thousand?
I mean, if you go to sort of say that Tottenham Arsenal game where you had the 2,000 behind like one goal, and but why can't you have that behind the other goal and then on both sides as well? I get that there is a particular sort of travel issue maybe, and sort of can the transport cope with 10,000 fans there, whereas easier with 2. But it feels like outside of that point of view, I think football can cope with having more fans. I was surprised how noisy it felt. Like the Tottenham, the Liverpool game, Chelsea as well. Like it really did feel like there was more than 2,000 there. So there's good acoustics inside these sort of modern stadiums, and also I think the fans are trying that little bit harder as well to sort of make up the numbers. But it felt like a boost to the home teams, I think.
Big boost. And I must admit, I didn't think there'd be that many in a 40, 50,000 stadium, 2,000 there, but it really did seem to make a difference. Yes. We'll talk about the Manchester derby in a bit, but got to touch on United as well, what happened in the Champions League last night, should I say.
Yes.
I'm not saying you're happy, but...
very happy.
Okay, very happy then.
No.
How surprised are you, that, especially after how well they started in the group stages?
Yeah, I am surprised because, Ali, when he first went to United, surprised everyone. And I guess, they had to give him the job because he seemed the perfect fit. A legend, understood the club, understood the DNA. They were playing a style of football that was beautiful from the point of being able to beat PSG in these teams. And then you sort of move forward. And if I'm right, I think it's like 2 years. You roll forward and they're like this, put together two or three games and then they lose 2 or 3 games. And it isn't a consistency. And the other sad thing about United, the problem is they've had so many successful players, the legends. So when they start voicing their views, it isn't hard for a manager, Ali, to be there.
Some have been teammates of his, haven't they?
Some are teammates, and they're starting to call it. They're starting to call it as the neutral fan would call it and say they're inconsistent. They're not playing a brand of ball that you can associate as United. And United, you normally have that consistency. That's what they built up over the years with Sir Alex Ferguson. And that's the one thing they're not at this moment.
He's a really good guy. He wants to do things in the right way. He's a United legend, but obviously the question's already been asked about his future.
Yeah.
Do you see him surviving this season and beyond?
I'm gonna sit here because it's very easy to sit and have nothing to do with United and say, get rid of a manager. And I know there'll also be fans that will sit and watch this and say, "Oh, he's a City fan. Yes, he will say keep him in." But I go from the viewpoint. If I'm Ali, are the what managers out there that can take, because United, you're thinking United want the top 3 or 4 top managers, and normally those managers are already at clubs that are got 2 and 3.
What would you do then if you were Ed Woodward?
If I was Ed Woodward, good question. I have to relook at the clause of this, but no. If I was Ed, sadly, Ali will probably have to move on, because United are a team that, you heard this language in the last few years, not in the last 2 years, in the last 4 years, top 4, and you're like, that's United language, and I sit as a City fan thinking, I love her in that. Just to get in top 4. If I'm Ed Woodward, I think they have to be looking, and whether that happens, in January or whether that happens in the summer, they have to be looking at someone that can really ignite United and give them not only a style of football, but will help them win trophies again.
Okay, well, item 3 this week is a new section. It is a social section as well, where we take a look at some of the funny posts or things that have happened across the clubs, or maybe players that have posted on their social media as well. Shaun, Mark, let's start with this one. A tweet from Jamie Carragher to Gary Neville. They've not backed the manager.
I mean, Carragher and Neville have been at each other for a while now, and I think Neville's losing the battle, to be honest, and he might be losing it for a long while. I mean, this all comes down to the fact that, Gary Neville's not going to dig out Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for Manchester United's problems. You could say, in some respects, that he's right, because Ed Woodward was, in charge when Louis van Gaal was there, when Jose Mourinho were there, and the struggles continued. But I think Carragher's going to be winning this battle for a long time yet.
I think Gary Neville won it in terms of what he won in trophies, but there's no doubt about it. At the moment, United really under pressure. How difficult would it be, do you think, for Gary to criticise Ole, or does he have to put that to one side and say what he sees?
Yeah, I think for the most part he says what he sees, but I think in this particular one, I'm quite intrigued to see how he goes about this, because again, he's a former teammate, but I like to think that Gary at this point would start to call it out. I think some other former teammates have started to call it out and say normally they go and say, "Wow, it's the players. When they cross the line, they're not doing it for the manager." But the manager have to have some accountability as well. So I think Gary would have to start saying the manager as well.
Okay, next one is in the Barcelona Museum. It is a Lionel Messi waxwork. What do we think about that, Shaun? Is it a Messi lookalike?
Well, first of all, I think the fact that it's awesome because he's an awesome player. But that looks like PK to me. Messi happy with that? I mean, listen, Messi deserves statues and all the rest of it. He's that sort of player. But I don't know. It's a real look-alike.
I think it's from years ago because he's smiling and he hasn't smiled.
Yes, no, he hasn't.
He's not had a smile on his face for at least a few years.
I think he'll still score 20 goals a season though, even his waxwork model.
Yes.
Okay, last one we've got here. Now it's a very unhappy Sheffield United groundsman. Now, we know that Jamie Vardy scored a last-minute winner at Bramall Lane. He went to the corner flag, kicked it, broke it. Just have a listen to what the groundsman's been saying.
That Jamie Vardy took me ages putting them flags on there and tying them.
Wow. I think we know exactly what he's thinking.
Yes.
I think I know where he's from as well. He's from Yorkshire, isn't he? He doesn't hide that particularly well. What was your celebration, Shaun, when you used to bang them in?
Well, not a karate kick or the corner flag. Actually, used to do whatever ground I went to. So if it was Newcastle, I used to sort of emulate Shearer. That would wind the fans up a little bit.
Okay.
So if I was at United, I'd do like a Cantona, sort of stand around and go, yeah. But
did you ever kick a corner flag?
Never kicked a corner flag. No. I think I'd have been silly enough to kick it and then come back and hit me. So I thought I'll leave it. Do a Vardy. If you're going to do it, then get rid of it.
Yeah. And make sure it's the winner in the last minute as
That's
well.
it.
Exactly.
Okay, item 4 is a new section this week as well. It's a Q&A section. We give a viewer a chance to win a £25 Amazon voucher for their question to be read out this week, obviously, to Shaun. Ruby Tuesday, first one up. Congratulations to you. How many goals per season would Shaun have got with David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne in the side, providing him with the service? How many do you think you would have got?
Wow. Listen, I was a finisher. What I understood was where to be. And also making little runs. And when I played with someone like Ali Benabia, who I found to be like a David Silva, my goals were like just there. So I don't want to sit here and say 30 and all that, but
we
like
can for you.
Yeah, I'd like to say I'd definitely get 20 goals, 20 plus goals. Yeah,
there's some players, aren't they?
Sorry,
David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne.
Yes, listen, I mentor kids and use them as highlights, but when I look at some of the stuff and I'm sort of rewinding it for myself and thinking, wow, these guys are just absolutely amazing. The positions they take up, the scanning and looking around the shoulder,
Would you make your movement off them, or do you think they'd just see your movement and put the ball in for you?
I think they see the movement. So as the forward, you see, first of all, you have to see that they've got the ball under control to deliver that pass. Because you at lower level and even sometimes at high level, you can get a player that will make a run and the player's just had the touch and you're making the run too early. So once he's had that touch and the head goes up, then you can make that shot. So that time and then once you've made that run, these players, De Bruyne and Silva, these guys are just like, you don't even have to look at them anymore. You just keep running straight and the ball just appears.
On the place.
Thank you. Yeah. There you go. Tap in, they're just phenomenal players and how they are, and they make it look so easy. And David Silva, I know he's no longer at the club, but I remember balls used to get fizzed into him and he used to just sort of kill it, and the ball was just like right there. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'd never control the ball like that. It was like touch tackle. I think, it was like control it and then I'm trying to fight it from the next player. But these guys make it look so easy. Yeah,
World class.
Yeah.
Okay, Jim Moore. Congratulations to you as well. Who would you rather have in your team? Now, I'm interested in this one, whether you're going to have your City hat on or not. Aguero and De Bruyne, or Son and Kane? Who would you rather have in your side?
Oh, I would have Aguero and De Bruyne. Because what I can say behind that partnership is they've already won things. That's a good get-out clause, that one.
That's a brilliant get-out clause.
Son and Kane.
Because they are brilliant, Son and Kane.
They really excite me. we're now seeing this other side to Kane's game, which is when he drops deep, he's like, don't worry, I see you, you're in. And they become really exciting to watch and to defend against. But yeah, Kevin De Bruyne and Aguero scores goals, you give him 3 chances, it's 2 goals, He's got that type of stats. Crazy, it's like 90 minutes. He got stats like 93 minutes or something like that. He scores a goal. It's just like, wow.
Kane isn't bad either. But we knew you'd say that. But you definitely got yourself out of that with the trophies and the medals. But very good question. Look, Jim and Ruby, you've won an Amazon £25 voucher. So congratulations to you. Don't forget, if you can, get your questions in for next week. We've got Franny Benali in. So get your questions in the comment section and see if you can win an Amazon voucher for next week. Okay, let's look at this weekend's games, shall we? Selected games. Let's start with the Friday game. It's Leeds United against West Ham. Both teams suffered defeats against big clubs last week. Leeds to Chelsea and West Ham to Manchester United. Both went a goal up, ironically. Well, what did you make of both, and who do you feel should be more disappointed with the defeat?
Well, Leeds being at home, I think the home team will always feel that, it's there to be won because they're at home, that home advantage. West Ham, they were more just starting to, they're putting together some games and you just think, wow, West Ham, you got to start looking at them. You're like, I'm sad sometimes watching and thinking, I see you, West Ham. I see what you're doing.
What are they doing? What are they doing for you?
Well, for me, West Ham are they're solid. They got Antonio, who is a powerful player, doesn't need a great deal of chances. If he's getting himself 3 opportunities, he's sticking it away. David Moyes' teams have always been sort of difficult to break down, and they've been better at counterattacking. So I think that side of his game and tactics is really starting to come to the fore. Bielsa Leeds, what I like and what I've learned about them, they make the game, and we all know this. It's like it's 1v1 on a full-size pitch, and you would know as well as I do. When you had those sessions where and the manager says, "Stay with your man." I mean, I remember doing that even when I was a kid.
Disguised running sessions, really, weren't they?
It was, and you just think, I can't stay with this guy, and he's also thinking, I can't stay with him. And this is the way they sort of play, and is really interesting because I think some of those tactics can really work against certain individuals, not a whole 11. So, but I like what Leeds do because they're a different element, if you like. They're really highlighting that we're fitter than you, and we're gonna really take you to the rim of your fitness, and then we'll sort of punish you. So. Tough one to call. But I like to think, Leeds are maybe edge it.
Okay, I mean, a crucial moment that United equalised against West Ham, wasn't it? I mean, obviously anybody's connected to West Ham would say the ball was clearly out.
Nearly hit Westfield Shopping Centre, didn't it? We went that far out. No, West Ham should have had that game wrapped up in the first half. How it was 1-0, you'll never know really because United. If United would have gone in 3 down, I don't think there could have been too many complaints. But you always know that if you don't put away a team that has got individual talent like Pogba, and it was still a brilliant finish from Pogba and Rashford and Greenwood and players like that. If you don't put them away and you're like one of those mid-table Premier League teams, it probably will come back because it's unlikely. Even against Leipzig, United weren't terrible for 90 minutes. They still, in the second half, really... pushed on, and West Ham were unable to cope with that, really.
Just interested in, before you get your prediction, I think we know what you're going to say. Patrick Bamford, yes. 8 goals in 11 games. He's averaging a goal every 118 minutes in the Premier League, compared to 1 in every 216 in the Championship last season. I mean, what have you made of him, and why such the improvement, where a lot of people are thinking he's not going to cut it in Premier League level?
I think if you play with better players, I know that precisely the same sort of team. When you play with better players, you get better opportunities. And contrary to what a lot of people believe, in the Premier you can get sometimes more time. Championship, sometimes you don't. You don't get as clever a player, but you may get a little bit more time. In the Premier League. So I think that's where he's he's benefiting from is having that extra second. And he's a presence in terms of he's fast, he's playing on the edge, and getting these type of goals, because Leeds again are this physical team, so they're sending bodies forward. Normally you hear teams say send bodies forward, they're sending 2 or 3. Leeds are sending 5 and 6, and you look around and you just see all these white shirts, and you're like, who am I picking up? So as a striker, this benefits you. Years ago when managers used to coach, and everybody's job was to defend. I remember coaches saying, and I'm thinking, well, everybody doesn't run forward to help me attack. But this is how Leeds are. So this is how why he benefits from this, because you look at when they attack, they're getting numbers in the box. Again, 5 and 6. And when you got 5 and 6 bodies, as a striker, whether you scored at whatever level, you're consistently scoring goals. You'll find goals even at the highest level.
And you're right, you do get more time. And for certain players, they play better because of that in the Premier League than the Championship. So your Betfred selection for this game?
Yeah, Leeds West Ham. I think it'll be a close one, but I'm just going to go for Leeds to edge this one 2-1. I think their fitness will overpower, and I go for Leeds to win this 2-1.
Mark?
I'm going to go for over 2.5 goals in the game. West Ham have scored in every match bar the opening one against Newcastle, and with Leeds, I'm never sure if they're going to score 3 or concede 4. It could be either. I suspect it'll probably be more a sort of positive day for them, but don't trust them enough, so I'll go for goals.
I think West Ham, like you said, have done really well so far. Leeds very open. They'll score, they'll concede as well, and I think they're probably about the same level. So I'm going to go for a score draw in this one. Okay, next up, the Manchester Derby. United against City. And look, you've been a hero in this fixture.
Yeah.
No fans this time around, but tell us what it's like to play in it with the fans and the atmosphere.
Well, for one thing, I mean, today's players, they're sort of kept away. You don't bump into the fans. We would bump into the fans, 2 weeks before. Hey, Derby's we've got a game or 2 before that. But it's the most important thing. The players will be cocooned, but they'll know the importance, and they'll know that for the majority time they've dominated Derby. They understand it, Certainly when the fans are there, the pressure, the expectation, it brings that fire to the game. But as players, you have to have this calmness about you and that thought process of it's only 3 points.
So how do you think no fans will affect this game, or would it be the same anyway for both sides?
I think not having fans, in a strange way, the game will still be intense, because there isn't. All these players have played several derbies now, so they understand. Marcus Rashford, for instance, I know he loves the derbies because every time I look, he's scoring against us. But he's the local lad. If you look at any of the City players, they understand what it means, because they know that when they've won the derbies, how the fans have carried on the social media and everything. But I think the passion, the fire, the grit, determination, the quality, I think will all be there. And the thing is, yes, we know what sort of week, certainly how United's been in the last game. With Derby, United can just flip the switch and then all of a sudden show up. And if I went back probably a year or more, then City sort of dominated. But now United's got that front line. They can show up and they can hurt anyone.
Let's talk City, because they have scored 7 and conceded none in the last 2 games. But before then, they were really struggling to score goals. As a City legend yourself, I mean, was it just about Aguero for you, or was it a little bit something more than that? Why weren't they quite firing on all cylinders?
I think it was a number of things. I think there was too much reliance on Kevin De Bruyne. I think he was trying to figure out Rodri alongside Gundogan sometimes, or 2 holding midfielders on occasions. I'm not sure if they were league games, but Fernandinho sort of played alongside him when he was available. So I think he was sort of figuring out a little bit, or tinkering the system a little bit. And yes, up front, I was really hoping that Jesus would have grabbed it, knowing that Aguero was out, because as a striker, you just wanted that clean bill of, yes, I've got the next 4 weeks, a run of games, I'm going to show you. He had that, hadn't quite delivered in terms of those goals. I would also say he sacrificed himself sometimes. I see him in wide position. I'm thinking, what are you doing up there? You know, I'd have a nosebleed if I'm out wide. I'm in the wrong position. Get back in the middle.
Yeah.
So, but he ends up there because he does a lot of hard work. So I think it was a number of things of why City weren't scoring as much, as you say, only scoring 7 and sort of conceding 9. Defensively, Laporte having a little bit of injuries, been in and out. Diaz coming in, few games, we see and go, what a player. So I think that John Stones is coming into it now, and John Stones looks like the John Stones that why Pep bought him. And I'm really pleased because I know that myself, that when better players come in, you've got to up your game. And I think that's exactly what's happening with John Stones. He's upped his game and made everybody go, because people are not even talking about Eke.
Yeah.
You know, they're saying Stones, and they're saying, yes, they still got Laporte, but Stones has gone in and done a fabulous job in the last two games or so that he's played.
Mark, how do you see it? I mean, United did the league double over City last season, but City are seen obviously as a stronger side. City like possession. United, I think it's fair to say, are quite happy playing on the counter.
United's best football usually is when they've got that space to run in behind, and maybe why they've matched up quite well against City, who have struggled against a similar sort of team in Tottenham at times, with somebody like Son, and Rashford does that same kind of, that threat out wide with the pace. I'm just not sure whether United are actually defending well enough to be able, because the counter attack, you've got to be able to defend well, as to be able to launch the counter-attacks in the first place. If you give City 65% of the ball but don't defend well, then you're going to lose the game. And, United are just conceding too many. I mentioned it earlier about how many they should have conceded against West Ham, 3 against Leipzig. There were a couple down against Southampton.
Always starting the game poorly at the moment
I
as well,
mean, you just can't keep doing that. No. Yes, United have got a good recent record in this fixture, relatively speaking. I don't expect it to continue.
Okay. Let's give us your Betfred selection then, shall we? Do we know what you're going to say?
You do. At the end of the day, again, because City, when they show up, and the last few games, City have showed up and started to score goals, keep clean sheets. So I feel confident. I would say United are that team that can show up on the day. So I'm thinking a close one, City winning, but I'm looking at a 2-1 for City.
Okay, Mark?
I'm going to go half-time, full-time, Man City to be leading at half-time and full-time to play on those United sort of nerves in terms of how badly they've been starting matches.
Okay, I'm going to go against the grain here. I'm not suggesting the United win. City are the better side. But I do think whenever they've been really under pressure, they seem to produce the next result, don't they? And I think you're right, defensively, if they do sit back, they haven't been defending well, but they can defend in numbers, which helps you defend well better.
Yeah.
Then the counter-attack, I can see both teams scoring. I'm going to go for a score draw in this one. Okay, next up, Saturday evening, it is Everton against Chelsea. And I want to talk Chelsea first. I mean, how impressive were they against Leeds? How impressive have you think they've been so far this season? They seem to have really got the balance right now, don't they, between defence and attack?
Yes, well, listen, Thiago coming in and Mendy as the goalkeeper, those two have just similar to what Liverpool have done. With Liverpool bringing in a centre-back with Van Dijk and Alisson, it seems to have had the same impact with Chelsea. I've sort of tipped Chelsea, at the ready to start the season, with the players, not seeing how they were going to perform. And I said, for me, definitely top 3. And the fortunate thing, what I like about Chelsea is they have that flexibility to be able to change systems and the quality to change. These are intelligent, quality footballers. So they can adapt if Frank wants to go 3-5-2, if he wants to play, 4-3-3 or 3-4-3. He has the quality of players to adapt and rotate his system. So therefore, he can have that element of surprise. So I've been very impressed with what Chelsea are doing and how they're getting on.
Very recently, in the last few days, Jurgen Klopp has said they're favourites for the title. You said top 3 at the start of the season. Looking at them now, do you agree with Jurgen Klopp or not?
I would, and at the same
time... Or is he
breath,
just trying to deflect
No, I would, and at the same time, I would say Liverpool have just, with all the injuries, I thought that's the time to really catch Liverpool and perhaps go 3 points or 4 points ahead of Liverpool. but they've just maintained that level with the players that's come in, and I've just went, this shows you the depth of Liverpool. And so at the same time, I say, yes, Chelsea can be favourites, but Liverpool are right there, and they're just showing you with their actions. They're showing you with their actions. They just keep winning and pulling out these results.
I think it's the most open Premier League season in years. Mike, we discussed the importance of Everton's fullbacks as well. I mean, not the same with both Digne and Coleman out, are they? And even with the change of system as well.
No, they're not. They are very important players for them. That's where they were getting, and Calvert-Lewin thrives on crosses, and to have two players like that from wider positions that can do that, and it helps Richarlison if Digne's going around the outside of him. So the whole team has just felt a little bit disjointed, I think, in recent weeks, really. And, it started brilliantly with that win at Spurs, carried that on for the first few weeks. Hasn't been the same since, and it was a average performance, I thought, last week against Burnley. Need to step it up, otherwise they'll get beat by Chelsea.
And just while you're here as well, I've got to ask you about the two strikers. Obviously, one was mentioned there, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. How well is he playing right now? But also Olivier Giroud and the professionalism he's showing as well by not playing every game.
Yeah, I mean, you heard Lampard all the time speak about Olivier Giroud in terms of his desire to want to learn and improve. And, you take your head off, because you would think he's won the World Cup, he could sort of rest on his laurels and go, I've won the World Cup. I ain't got to prove nothing to no one. But it just shows you his attitude, mentality. And he's reaping the rewards now. He plays games, he starts games, and then he goes, there you go, there's a couple goals. And you just go, okay, I see you. I see what you're doing. And, he's again, that's that being able to adapt to a different, he could throw him up, and say, we're going to use him and utilize his physical side of his game, because against this team, that's the weakness. He'll be able to hold balls up. We can get the midfielders supplying the wide passes, etc., get our quality in the final third. So he has that squad that he can really do some things with.
And Calvert-Lewin?
Calvert-Lewin, I like his energy. I like his desire. I like his finishing. He's added a little bit more quality to his finishing as opposed to last season. The manager believes in him. We all know the importance of a manager believing in you. When a manager believes in you, you score more goals. Instead of scoring 15, you end up with 23. With a manager's belief. And the fact he's part of the England setup, he's now got a belief in himself, like, I'm one of the top boys, I'm one of the top players. So I do like what I see, and I'm interested to see how he will compete against Thiago, because we know Thiago is an experienced just a legend, period. Quality player. To see how he deals with them if they're throwing those balls in the air, because Calvert-Lewin has got a huge amount of spring. How he copes with that.
And Silva's not actually the tallest, as good as he is. So what's your Betfred selection for this game?
For me, it's a Chelsea 2-0 win.
Mark?
Timo Werner to score first. He's missed a lot of chances. He's playing well, but he's missed a lot of chances. He's not going to keep missing them.
No, he's not. He's a quality player. I actually think I can see Everton scoring. I can see Calvert-Lewin scoring. Both teams to score, but Chelsea are on fire at the moment. I'm going to go for a Chelsea win.
Yeah.
Okay, on Sunday, it is Crystal Palace against Spurs. And Shaun, what do you make of Spurs' tactics against Arsenal? I mean, similar to the one at Chelsea, which I think gives credit to Frank Lampard that they didn't open themselves up. But do you see it as boring, or do you see it as a masterclass?
Well, this is Mourinho. He sticks to what he knows. He understands, and he knows he's won this way. He's won and delivered results and delivered trophies by, being pragmatic, and Tottenham are buying into it. Tottenham are which just amazes me, because I look at Tottenham and I think quite the opposite. Like, you got all these offensive players, you should be taking the game to teams. But his way is, we're going to take the game to you. You can have possession, and when our boys go forward, Son, Kane, this quality with pace, you won't be able to cope with it. So,
do you think they can win the title? I'm not saying every game they're going to have 30% possession, but playing that way, they can win the Premier League title? Or is it about, look, if we keep it tight, we've got Son and Kane up front, so we can score goals?
I do believe that, but I don't believe that they can maintain this to win the league. But this may just be what works. So because as a forward, you're just saying to your fans, give me 90 minutes, And in that 90 minutes, if you give me 2 or 3 chances, I'll bring the win home. And Jose's tactics essentially are that. Listen, we're going to give you 90 minutes, and we're going to give you a couple chances to bring that game home. So, and in Son and Kane, these guys are just phenomenal. They're pairing. I love how I see Kane now dropping. He's shown to me his another side, the intelligence, the clever passing. We can go back a number of games and we're just seeing him just sliding players in. And he must think, when I started to see this, he must think to himself, why you guys just don't see those passes for me? I'm making these runs. But it's a delight to see him drop and his game management is absolutely brilliant when it's deep and isn't got much on and he buys these fogs and he's just a clever player. He really is.
Very clever and a world-class player without a doubt. I mean, you look at it, it's been 3 difficult games and 7 points out of 9.
Yeah, I think if you play like this against Crystal Palace, that's when you can start to criticise. Away to Chelsea, I really don't see a problem with being that defensive against a team.
Mark's a Spurs fan, by the way.
Yeah, but I prefer to watch Spurs play. Under Pochettino, I enjoyed that football very much. But I think it is horses for courses. And away to Chelsea, why would you go and attack Chelsea when they've got Timo Werner, who destroyed Tottenham last year when he was at Leipzig? You play that one safe against City and Arsenal. I think it was game situation. They were ahead very early in both games and they don't need to attack. But when they did need to attack against Manchester United, against Southampton, they scored 6 and 5 against them. And you look at the big chances created, they're joint with Liverpool, they've got the joint best goal difference. Like I say, I think you can play like that in the big games. You've then got to have something else about you when you're playing Crystal Palace, because then Crystal Palace are going to do to Tottenham what Tottenham have done to Chelsea. Yeah,
interesting with Palace, isn't it? They've scored more goals in the last 2 Premier League games with, where I'm going with this, with Wilf Zaha in the side than the previous 19 without him. So good news then that Christian Benteke is getting on the score sheets.
I mean, it is good news. I mean, it worries me that a team is so reliant on one player, and it's great that it's great for Zaha because I think he enjoys that side of being, the absolute star man. I just feel, I mean, Shaun was talking there about the tactics for Tottenham of being, keep it tight, and then you've got 2 players that can win a game. Crystal Palace are keep it tight, and we've got 1 player that can win a game. It keeps them up, and Roy Hodgson's not going to change. Like Jose Mourinho is not going to change. Roy Hodgson's not for changing. He's done this for about 50 years.
Yes. What's your Betfred selection for this game then?
I'm actually going 2-1 to Tottenham. 2-1, but I see Tottenham scoring. I see Crystal Palace scoring, so 2-1 to Tottenham.
I'm going to go for Crystal Palace or draw, double chance of Tottenham not to win. Spurs had real difficulty breaking down Burnley and West Brom. Nicked it late on both occasions. I'm not sure they can keep doing that though.
Really? I'm going to go with Spurs to win 2-0. I can't see Palace scoring actually, to be honest with you. And I do think they might leave it late, but I do think they've got enough quality to break down that Palace defence. But you've got 2 teams, well, one team definitely, Palace, who will kind of play for 0-0 and see what happens. Spurs have done that in previous weeks, but I do think they'll open up a little bit here. I'm going for Spurs to win 2-0. Okay, Fulham, Liverpool. Let's start with Liverpool, because I thought Wolves had a real chance on Sunday. You talked about the injuries that they've had.
Yeah.
That's Leicester now that have gone to Anfield and been hammered. Wolves now that have gone to Anfield have been hammered. These are 2 good sides.
Yes.
And you have to give a lot of credit to Klopp and the players that he's bringing in. And some of them are youngsters, aren't they?
Yes, he's bringing these young players in and, well done to the recruitment and the development, in terms of the academy. These players have come in. The young midfielder is named Jones. He's just slotted right into there. The fullback, another one. Again, he's got the energy, the drive, and you're just thinking it's probably only a year younger than Trent, or 2 years. And you're just thinking the future there is really rosy. I take my hat off to him because the tactics, being able to bring these young players in. He threw a real curveball when Liverpool played City. No, I didn't see that coming. I don't think Pep saw it, certainly in the first half. Four quality attacking players put City right on the back foot. So not only are they sort of hammering these teams, there's the tactics, there's the young players that's coming in. You look at Klopp, he's ticking all the boxes. And I know we were talking earlier about Chelsea could be favourites, but this is why I say Liverpool are actually, they're doing it. They're doing it even with key players being out. So that's the fascinating thing and exciting thing, certainly for Liverpool and their fans.
It is the players coming in, whether they're young or whether they're new, they're coming in, they know what they're doing and they're making an impact. And I just found it really interesting, Nuno Espirito Santo said afterwards that they couldn't live with Liverpool's intensity. And as I say, this isn't Liverpool's first choice 11, but people are coming in and doing exactly what the big boys do.
I think this is down to the coaching and the philosophy and sort of, I suppose, just the process every day in training. And you could put that back to, say, an Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who keeps on changing his formation. Is it a back three? Is it a midfield diamond? Jurgen Klopp plays, I take it that he can play the four forwards, and that was a surprise. But all that meant really was that Firmino just played sort of in one of the sort of deeper midfield positions, generally speaking. Every player knows what they're doing, and if Curtis Jones come in, he knows if he's playing the Wijnaldum role or the Henderson role or whatever, and that's the way that they do it. And that's why he's a great coach, and he's done it before. He did it with Borussia Dortmund, and he took on Bayern Munich, and he beat Bayern Munich. So he's just doing it again with Liverpool, and it's the perfect match. The club, the city, is absolutely right for him.
Yeah, totally. Tough run of games for Fulham, isn't it? City away, Liverpool at home.
I thought they did okay. They still lost to Man City, and they lost easily enough. But
some were predicting many more, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like Scott Parker will probably be quite relieved that they came out of it not having lost too much confidence that they built up from the Leicester game. And Anguissa in midfield looks like he could play for one of the top teams, and he could be the difference if they're to stay up. Having a quality player like that in midfield could just be enough for them.
Just before I ask you your Betfred selection, are you saying then, and how much does it hurt you to say that Liverpool are the favourites for the title?
Yeah, I all the signs are there.
Over City.
Yes, because they consistently are winning games with key players out, key players slowly drifting back in, and again, they only recently played City. And what I saw in the first half, I think, was an element of surprise. So tactically, he surprised me. I don't say he surprised Pep, but he surprised me. And what I saw, it looked like a surprise City.
Yeah. So what is your Betfred selection for this game? Liverpool?
Saw Fulham against City, and they really didn't lay a glove on City. Fulham at home, I still see Liverpool winning this game, comfortable. I think 3-0. I'm going to stick with 3-0. It's rather not Fulham will get a goal because they're at home, but I'm thinking 3-0 Liverpool.
Mark?
I hope Sean's right. I've gone for Liverpool to win and over 2.5 goals, so at least 3 goals in the game. All bar one of Liverpool's wins this season have featured 3 goals in the Premier League.
Liverpool have scored in both halves of each of their last 6 Premier League meetings with Fulham. I didn't know this when I gave my prediction initially, but I think it's going to be pretty much the same as well. Liverpool to win both halves, to me, it'll be a comfortable Liverpool win. Okay, Arsenal-Burnley next up. Arsenal, 13 points from 11 games. It's the worst start to a season since 1981. They're 15th. What's happening there? And how naive do you feel they were against Spurs in the North London derby?
Well, I really are surprised because Arteta when he went, started winning things, playing a brand of football, tidied up that dressing room, tidied up players, and you thought the future looks really good. And not quite sure, have teams sussed out Aubameyang, because you stop those goals, then you start to think where are the goals coming from, and Lacazette, scores. He's almost like a midfielder when I say in terms of his goal return, and that's probably the problem he has. He doesn't have another goal scorer that can take that weight off Aubameyang. So when Aubameyang plays an average game, he hasn't earned his contract, and all that sort of discussion comes into the fore, as opposed to what about other players? Williams going there under the radar, not producing goals. This guy's Brazilian, this guy's experienced, this guy knows the Premier League, should be putting in goals, putting in assists, and just floats under the radar. So I think those are sort of 2 players that can give a little bit more and help out where they are.
I was disappointed to see Willian leave Chelsea because he did really well there, but he's not pulling up any trees. Neither is Lacazette. But just on Aubameyang as well, he is their talisman. He's only scored 2 goals, and one of those was a penalty since he signed a new contract. I was speaking to Tony Cascarino yesterday, who said to me that Ken Bates had said to him, when a player signs a big contract, you lose him for 3 months. Can you understand what he means? Whether that's from a mental point of view or a physical point of view, when he signs a big contract, you kind of lose him for 3 months. And I think the 3 months are soon to be up.
A brilliant question, because I'm thinking when I signed my contracts, I kicked on.
Did you?
I and it'd be interesting to see if, when he signed, did he go a game and score and then not score? But no, when I think back, when I signed, I normally kicked on, because you're excited that, put pen to paper, you've got another 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years. But I think it's a mental thing. When you go a number of games and stop scoring or not scoring, it becomes a mental thing. And some players can start look around and say, Scott hasn't provided me the service. Mark hasn't, been beating his man and doing this for me.
He never does.
Surprise.
So, but what doesn't take place is I don't look at myself when saying, are you making the right runs? Are you available? Are you mobile? Are you, So Aubameyang would have to ask himself questions as well, rather than it's really, and it's this person really has to deal with himself and get his game going. But I think he has to ask himself those questions, like, am I still making these runs? Am I getting the ball in final third? Why am I not? Why am I not? To be able to take players on and get in these areas where I can cut in on my right foot and deliver it, or from up the middle, why am I not getting these services? Am I not showing? And so he has to ask it of himself.
Where would you play him? Centre forward or on the left coming in?
I think he's produced his best work from being out wide, coming in. And I think, the thing is, the little I know of Arteta will ask himself those questions. Why am I not creating opportunities? And that's the thing I did as a player. What do I need to do, rather than the manager needs to do this and my teammate needs to do this? I used to ask myself, why are you not getting chances? Are you not working hard enough? Are you not on the shoulder enough? Are you going too deep? Are you too wide? Remember I was telling you about having a nosebleed if I was wide? So I think the players, the coaches, they all have to ask this question. I'm pretty sure Arteta is doing that.
Yeah.
He strikes me that way as a manager.
Mark, I know you're really gutted Arsenal are struggling at the moment. But could Burnley be the perfect opponents? I mean, Arsenal aren't scoring at the moment. Burnley aren't.
I think they're the worst opponents.
Do you?
Yeah, I do, because imagine they lose this game. If you play Man City next and you lose, then people, I think, would be more forgiving. If you don't beat Burnley, that it might be enough to sort of to think that we need to make a change here or whatever. Because I think,
really, if they lose this game,
I think so. I can just see the panic if they end up sort of in. I mean, they're already 15th. If they sort of 16th, 17th, that becomes it's not where Arsenal want to be. So I think it's the worst game from that point of view, because I feel you almost want a harder game now to sort of you can play with less pressure. I think if the game's not as easy, and I'll put that in inverted commas, and the way that Arsenal are slinging crosses into the box at the moment, I mean, Burnley will absolutely love that. The one thing about Aubameyang, or two things: one, his agent was on Instagram doing shots of the stats of chances not being created, which kind of plays on the point what Shaun was talking about. Is he asking himself enough questions? The second one was when they did actually slip that ball through to him, he's one-on-one with Toby Alderweireld.
Yeah.
He never really looked like he was going to score. And that would be probably a bigger concern than him not getting on the end of the crosses.
Okay. Is this pressure for Mikel Arteta? Are you going to put more pressure on him? Betfred selection for this one?
Yes, it is. And I totally agree with Mark. I think it's a very difficult game for Arsenal. Sean Dyche's team show up every week in terms of that. If you're going in points, you got to give everything. And I'm going to go for a draw in this one. I'm going 1-0.
Okay.
I'm going to go for under 2.5 goals. Arsenal scored 2 in their last 7, and so have Burnley.
Yeah, I'm going for 1 goal in this game, but I do think it's going to go to Arsenal, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Aubameyang as well. But I don't think it's going to be a classic. Okay, final game that we're previewing. It is Leicester against Brighton, and Leicester left it later at Bramall Lane. We've already talked about Jamie Vardy, what he did to that corner flag, but he's some finisher, isn't he?
Yes, Jamie Vardy is absolutely quality. Certainly when you leave that spacing behind, and when Leicester on that way, they just slide these balls down for him. And, you know, Jamie's that sort of player. He doesn't need 3 chances. You give him 2, he definitely takes 1. And on his day, he can take 2. So a phenomenal player, plays on the shoulder. We know what it's about. You know, still absolutely rapid. Not quite sure exactly how old he is, but we know he's 30 plus, but he is as though he's 22. When you see him, you know, sort of take defenders on or on their stride, and you just think, is he 22? Or, you know, or is he in his 30s? Quality player.
41 goals since Brendan Rodgers took charge in March last year. That's 8 more than any other Premier League player. So he's certainly getting the best out of him. Another player I want to talk about is James Maddison. It was his first assist of 2020 last week. I mean, look, he's had his injury problems, but he's got to step up now, isn't he? Because he's fallen behind in the pecking order, certainly for England.
I don't know if he was watching the show last week when we criticised him. He's worked his way
He's always
up
watching
into
you, Mark.
assists. He's got to do more. It wasn't that long ago, him and Grealish, he was probably seen as ahead of Grealish in many people's eyes. Obviously, they've gone in 2 very different directions. Since, I suppose, Leicester have been more reliant on other players as well. You've seen, say, Harvey Barnes has stepped up, or Tillemans, Pratt as well, another one that's done quite well. But yeah, he does. He's not sort of that youngster anymore. He kind of, Leicester had been sort of building the team around him, and I think it's a great testament really to Vardy that he carried on scoring, even though that main supply line from Maddison had sort of quietened down. He'd found other ways of scoring goals. I do think that John Egan should have fouled Vardy, though.
Totally.
I mean, you take the red card in the 91st minute outside the area and it's a free kick.
You know he's going to go on and score, don't you, in a 1-on-1 situation. Brighton perhaps unlucky against Southampton. What did you make of the VAR decision,
I hated
the overturning of the penalty?
I hated it. I just, it's just VAR, isn't it? Whereas I wasn't sure that it was a foul. The idea is that it was a penalty because the foul continued inside the box. I don't think it did. I think there was a foul initially outside the box, and then I think Walker-Peters, when he went inside the box, found a way to sort of go down again, and it just felt like a free kick felt like the right outcome for me from that situation. Brighton weren't very good in the second half. They were much better in the first half, and it's the same old story really for Graham Potter. We talk about his team playing well, and they just don't win enough games.
So what's your Betfred selection for this one, Shaun?
Yeah, I think Leicester will win this 2-1. I think Vardy will be one of those goal scorers. Graham Potter's team play football, but they're just unable to score you 2 and 3 goals and see a game through. So, yeah, Leicester 2-1.
Play good in the middle third, but they haven't got the quality in the final third, have they? What do you say?
I'm going to go for a little upset. I'm going to go for Brighton or draw, double chance. I just think that Brighton are better than the league table suggests, and they could pop up. Fulham wasn't that long ago, went to Leicester and won.
Yeah, I agree what you're saying. I'm actually going for Leicester here, and Leicester to win 2-0 as well. I think even though they're the home side, they'll probably sit back, let Brighton have the ball and try to counter. And we've talked about Jamie Vardy, how good he is. So Leicester to win 2-0 for me. Okay, let's talk about our best fantasy football picks this weekend. Each of us pick a player we think will be the star man. Who have you gone for?
Well, I went for Son. I just think that his combination with Harry Kane, his belief, his movement, he is a threat. And if he's allowed a little bit of space to run into, he just creates these opportunities. And again, we're seeing what Kane does when he drops deep. He's as good as Kevin De Bruyne in terms of sliding the ball through. So, yeah, I've gone for Son. I think exciting player.
Is he world class for you?
I don't see why we can't start to have that conversation. You know, he's. We'll probably say, yeah. I'm not quite sure on the top of my head the number of goals he's got, but he's pretty consistent for me. And I like his work ethic. But when you talk world class, we're talking about quality. And for me, I see it. For most of the times when I see him, you know, again, Tottenham fans will see him week in, week out. I don't see him playing too many poor games.
No.
I always see him sort of at that 7 or 8. And I was at a big club, I would say, yeah, he has to be a part of that conversation in terms of world class.
Yeah, he scores, he makes assists, and he also defends for the team as well. He's a top quality player. Who have you gone for this weekend?
I've gone for Vestergaard of Southampton. He's got 3 goals already this season. They've got Sheffield United, so hopefully a clean sheet coming as well for the defender. But Ralph Hasenhüttl, Ward-Prowse is brilliant at set pieces, but Hasenhüttl is also brilliant at coaching them. way back when he first came through the Bundesliga with Ingolstadt, they stayed, they basically, the whole survival plan was based around set pieces, and he can coach corners and free kicks, sort of absolute master at it. They're so deadly from dead balls.
They are. I've gone for Diogo Jota. I think he's been brilliant since he's come to Liverpool. I'm surprised he didn't start against Wolves. You always want to play against your former side. I'm pretty sure he'll start against Fulham, and I do think he'll fill his boots as well. So Diogo Jota for me. Okay, let's have a look at this weekend's team treble, where we all pick a side we think are going to win. 13-2 the odds are this weekend. Who have you gone for, Shaun?
Yeah, I've gone for Tottenham. Again, the Son and Kane, their partnership, also being solid at the back. I feel fairly confident that they're going to win their game.
Mark?
I'm going to go for the Bundesliga, Leverkusen to beat Hoffenheim. Hoffenheim without a clean sheet in the Bundesliga this season. Leverkusen doing really well, won 6 of their last 7 matches. As we speak, they're second in the Bundesliga, and I expect them to win.
Okay, I've gone for Newcastle. I think it's a good time to be playing West Brom at the moment. It got hammered last week. They got Pereira out. And I just think that Newcastle, you can't really say at home because the fans aren't there as such. Certainly not the 55,000 anyway. But I fancy them to win this game. So 13-2, the odds are there. We can stick a pound on that. Shaun, thanks very much for your time. You enjoyed it?
Always a pleasure. It was great linking up. I like how you just slide me in. And yeah.
Keep talking to me as if I'm Kevin De Bruyne or something like that. No, great to see you. Thanks
Pleasure.
very much. Look forward to the next time. Mark, as ever, thank you. And we are back next week. Of course, we'll look back at the weekend's results and look ahead to the selected Premier League matches coming up. Remember, of course, if you are to gamble, on behalf of everyone here at the Racing Post and Betfred, please gamble responsibly.